Johnny Somali is probably going to spend some time in a Japanese prison, depending on whether or not the Japanese government wants to make an example out of him. They might just deport him, but if they decide they really dislike him, the crime he's accused of has a 1 to 4 year sentence, depending on how lenient the government feels, followed by deportation and being banned from Japan. Considering that Japan has a conviction rate of 99% and he literally live streamed his alleged crime, I would be willing to say that I think his goose is cooked, which isn't great for him since Japan's prisons haven't changed all that much since their imperial days, with forced hard labor being a hallmark of their prison system. So today let's talk about Johnny Somali and how he managed to make Japan angry at him, which given Japanese culture is pretty hard to do. So who is Johnny Somali? Well, he's an IRL live streamer. Now all IRL content is kind of sketchy. Something about the risks you're taking while out on the street, filming the general public who usually don't want to be filmed, even if it's legal to do so in public without people's permission, which it is in America at least. It seems like you're just making the choice to be a nuisance when you pick up that camera in streaming backpack. But there are two real types of IRL streamers. Those who are aware of how weird it is to do IRL streaming and go out of their way to accommodate people while they're live, and those that are aware of how weird it is and decide to play into it, becoming as big a menace as possible. Because bad press is still good press, and being dumb in public is a pretty good way for you to get people to watch. Johnny Somali is of the latter type. He is, in my opinion, a menace to society. He's basically just Ice Poseidon, but in Japan for whatever reason. I have zero idea why you would take the risk to do this kind of thing in Japan, but he's basically been going around just bothering random Japanese people for no good reason, between having his text-to-speech loudly repeat Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the site of the 2 atomic bombings that ended Japan's imperial age and basically killed their god, on the subway.
I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening.
To having pretty much brawls in the street.
Hop in Discord right now. Hop in Discord. Oh, whoa.
It's pretty easy to see why people are upset with him. It's clear to me that he's the kind of guy who has never faced punishment in his entire life and considers himself to be above other people and above the law. Now that kind of thing isn't too unheard of in American states like California, where they've basically just given up on actually arresting and punishing people, hence the massive amount of crime. But it's a little different in Japan. You see, a lot of things in Japan modernized after the end of World War II, but Japanese culture around crime and punishment is still pretty harsh. Maybe not Imperial Japan throw you outside in a blizzard to see how fast you get hypothermia punishment, but still hard labor and harsh sentences. We're talking about a country that doesn't even tell their criminals when their execution date will be until they're on their way to the chopping block. And they have a 99% conviction rate. Now that doesn't mean that 99% of people arrested in Japan are guilty, but it does mean that 99% of them end up being found guilty, which is weird because technically you're innocent until proven guilty in court under Japanese law, but it certainly doesn't usually play out that way. Unfortunately for Johnny Somali, he was allegedly arrested for criminal trespassing from this incident where he walked into a construction site and started going around bothering workers. Yeah, that's right, an active construction site. So I'm really not sure why anyone would ever live stream themselves committing crimes, but Johnny did, I guess. If I had to guess, that's not going to be as funny when it gets played in front of a Japanese judge. Right now, the best that Johnny can hope for is that they just deport him. In Japan, they can hold criminals for up to like 28 days before actually charging them, locked up in a tiny cell in a police station the whole time, being interrogated every day, sometimes without a lawyer present. Usually, this is like an intimidation tactic to get someone to confess to the crime, since if it's minor, people will just confess and pay a fine or whatever to get out without spending a month of their lives in a tiny cell. But I'm not so sure they really need him to confess, since he just kind of freely put the evidence they need up on the internet for anyone to see. So he might get lucky and basically get let go after 28 days and told to leave the country. But given how vindictive the Japanese legal system is, and just how awful Johnny Somali is, let alone the notoriety that Johnny Somali has started to get internally on Japanese news, to the point that they're considering outlawing IRL streaming entirely, I think it's more likely they're just going to let him cook in there, then charge him with whatever they they can. Probably more than just trespassing at the end though, since I think a lot of what he did on livestream in Japan was probably breaking some Japanese laws. Basically, he's screwed. The punishment for just the trespassing, if he gets convicted, is a fine and 1 to 4 years in prison. Since he's a foreigner, that would be followed by deportation and at least a few years banned from Japan. Pretty much, he's screwed. I said it before when I was talking about Ice Poseidon getting arrested in Thailand, but it just feels like streamers go to these rather conservative countries and assume that the law is the same as it is in the most lenient states of America. Basically, if there was a moral of this story, it should be, just don't be a terrible human being in a foreign country, and maybe try to respect their laws just a little bit, because if you don't, you'll find out that the American legal system, flawed as it may be, is leagues better and fairer than the legal systems in most of the world. So tell me, do you think that Johnny Somali is going to go to prison, or be kicked out but not face charges? I'd like to hear your reasoning in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. Have a great day, and God bless you.